A very good morning to you all, and welcome to India DevOps Show 2022. Thank you for giving us your time today. And like Glavina just mentioned, I think the smile should continue through today, and you'll have every reason for that. The kind of lineup that I've seen here, you'll be hearing from a lot of people in the industry who will share their experiences today. And that's not only bound to keep you a smile for the day, but also when you go back, you'll be smiling because you would have so many insights, I'm sure, by then. So with that, welcome to this panel discussion on design, build, and test in DevOps. In today's discussion, of course, we have before I introduce the panel, I just want to give a brief of what the session will have. In today's session, we will have experts in the panel delve into the big enablers and challenges that the DevOps teams face today, the role of security in DevOps, as well as how do you keep up with ever-shortening deadlines, right? How do you keep up quality at speed? And these are some things that we will touch upon today. About myself, a quick introduction. I am Pradeep Sheshadri. I head the solutions consulting and customer adoption teams for Neuralink India. Been with here for about a year now, close to. And what I want to tell about the panel today is I've been having offline conversations with the gentleman that you see here. What I can confidently tell you is among all the people that you see here on stage, you are bound to experience or hear from them about the rich experiences. They all come together and bring experiences such as setting up successful startups, setting up offshore data centers, and they have a very fun side to them as well. So without further ado, let me introduce the esteemed panel for today, beginning with Avinash from Razorpay, who has been the only passenger in a two-seater plane. Can you imagine that? That must have felt special. Perfect. Welcome, Avinash. We have Pratik from JM Financials, who is passionate about reading, coding, and writing. You want to know more? He'll be available off stage in some time. So apart from the DevOps knowledge that he can give you, you can also ask him about what he does in his pastime. Welcome, Pratik, again. We have Hari from HDFC Securities. Welcome, Hari. Hari is an engineer by passion and entrepreneur by nature. He is, to his credit, starting new companies, running some successful practices, setting up practices. So good to have you here, Hari. We now have Anand from Goffin Labs. So he seems pretty, if I tell you the fun fact, you probably will take some time to relate it to him. He's been a dirt race biker and a winner of it as well. So imagine Anand right now riding a dirt race bike. I'm sure that would have been very, thrilling, Anand. Welcome again. We have Jigar from HDFC Ergo. Welcome, Jigar. He is an engineer by profession, a rider by choice. So at least we have two riders. We could have a race probably after this. We'll go and we'll find a track and get to race, right? Last but not the least, Ashish from Neo Solutions. Welcome, Ashish. And we share a kind of common interest, chef by choice. So I was just telling him that I take orders on Friday from family, friends, and you guys want to show up, please let me know. And I like cooking on Saturdays and Sundays. That's how my time goes, right? So with that, I welcome you all and really thank you for your time today. You have set aside important, valuable time. I'm sure the audience today is looking forward to getting your experience and views as relates to DevOps, but I would also go on and say that let's not only limit it to DevOps, but anything that you think the audience can benefit from, please go ahead and share that. That's my request of you. And to the audience, again, I really thank you. Valuable time you've given us today. You've been all here, and I'm sure you will find a lot more things to take away by end of today. And with only experts, you're hearing from experts and what their views and experiences are. My only request, I think Glavina said this, and I'm going to say this again, post-COVID, we now have a chance to have FaceTime that we are in this room today. So my request is avoid screen time for the rest of the day and sit back, relax, and enjoy the face time. Let's hear from the experts today and make the best of today. Yeah? Thank you. With that, without further ado, what I'll do is I'll delve into the first question for the day. And this is something I just want to ask you all as an opening thought, right? So I would like to place this in front of you and get your opening thoughts on this one. The question is, what do you see as a transformation that's happening in DevOps today? It could be with people, it could be with culture, it could be with technology. You could touch upon any or more aspects on that one, but I'd just like to know, how do you see DevOps transforming? And in an era of rapid transformation, how is DevOps transforming itself? With that, I'll turn it over to you, Avinash, for your view.
Yeah, so thank you. Just to introduce myself again, I'm Avinash from Razorpay, representing here. Razorpay is one of the largest fintech companies in India and helping businesses, merchants primarily, to get their payments easily. So talking about the transformation, one thing that I've seen on the people side is, about 10 years back, it was system administration, primarily, if I talk about the DevOps function. When I started this DevOps journey, DevOps was not even there, that term was not there. I started hiring them, and the first few people that I had came from system administration background. Nowadays, that is no longer the case. Now we have computer scientists, right, who have studied computer science by choice. They are coming into this field. They have rich programming experience. They understand the computers. It's not only the system administration anymore. So I think that's one of the biggest transformation that I've seen, apart from, of course, technology has matured and other fields also have changed, but people side is one of the things that I've seen.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Avinash. So right from system administration to computer scientists today, that's the shift that we're seeing. Good to know that. Good to know that. I will go over to Anand now. And Anand, if I could ask you, how do you see DevOps evolving over the next couple of years? Yeah. How do you see DevOps evolving over the next couple of years from where it is today?
So we are already at infinity. Where can we go from there?
That also means there is no limit to that.
So yeah, absolutely. So jokes apart, the moment we see the trends in technology, in rules, or in anywhere, I mean, the first thing that many of you might have seen that it's platform engineering. People start talking about platform engineering. But I definitely would like to focus on a couple of things. So one is macro as well as micro analysis. So if you look at platform engineering as the micro part of it, then DevOps is getting evolved into something called platform engineering, and most of us might have been already working with it, or might be implementing in their own companies along with their roles, etc., etc. So I won't focus much about the roles at this point in time. But if you start looking at the macro part of it, which is hardly talked about on internet, there are multiple industry standards. They are getting converged. I'm quite sure that many of you might have seen this DevOps getting coupled with Agile, getting coupled with IT service management, maybe typically your ITIL processes, etc. And over the period of time, it is India as a growth story is embracing it to the different global in-house centers opened up within the Indian territory from maybe a lot of international brands. So just to give you a little brief about GIC, so that is global in-house centers or captive centers. As per NASSCOM data in 2021, we have around 1,200 plus the GIC set up in India, and they are employing approximately direct and indirect employment of 800,000 people in India. So it's a huge initiative, and it is going to support the DevOps platform engineering and the multiple tools which are required for the DevOps by using the industry standard processes and practices like ITSM, then your agile, and there are multiple security related processes and their standards. So this is the entire thing which is going to, I see that is happening in this.
So basically platform engineering and standardization of processes, right?
Absolutely.
Cool. So thank you so much, Anand. I'll turn to you, Hari, now on the question on what is shifting in terms of transformation, people, cultural, technological. What's your view on that?
Good morning. See, cultural shift, one, I see the approach in the enterprises is completely changing. We used to have a CapEx approach for all the acquisitions or development and anything. With DevOps and the cloud, we're no longer into that CapEx approach. Now we are running an everyday cost-conscious approach. How we are looking at system, how we are looking at running it, and how we are managing it in terms of cost. So what had happened is it brought in a different set of skill sets into the organization, which are bigger than the development itself. Okay, so we used to do like, for example, if 50% of the resources were managing development, and then the rest 50% were actually doing the rest of the infrastructure. Now it has actually become a 30-70. So there is a lot of emphasis in terms of how we wanted to do dev, how we wanted to manage, how we wanted to do a cost efficiency on a recurring basis. So this is the biggest shift which I see in the enterprises like us. We keep looking at it, evolving. We have not yet perfected it, but then we are learning and in everyday learning and then perfecting it to on the due course.
Perfect. So basically, it's no more CapEx. It's the way the financial models are also defining how the priorities change within the DevOps teams and how it is being done.
Correct, yeah.
Right? Perfect. Thanks, Hari. I'll turn over to Ashish now to get your view on what you see as a shift.
Yeah, sure. And thanks, Pradeep. And I believe a very good question to start with, like how DevOps have transformed over a period of time. See, if you see before a few years, one of the main responsibilities of DevOps, or the way the concept is still itself evolved, was that who does this continuous integration, who is responsible for continuous delivery, and continuous integration, continuous development. That is where this entire concept evolved with. And today, if you see, DevOps itself has broken into so many teams.
Right.
NOC is one part of it.
Yep.
Which is Network Operation Centers. I am sure you all know. it is not only about deployment, but also once the deployment is done, what happens after that? Right? So that is also now a responsibility of DevOps. Then DevSecOps is another part of it, right? So which is a branch coming out of DevOps
So
itself.
true.
Right.
Very relevant.
Which primarily means that, how much early in the development cycle you are able to figure out the vulnerabilities in the code. So that was, again, evolution of how DevOps is moving ahead. Performance monitoring is another part of it. Again, there is a branch coming out of DevOps where once the code goes out, how many 2xx you are getting, 5xx, 4xx. This monitoring everything is part of DevOps now, right? Along with release management. So I think a lot of cultural transformation is happening. I believe that it continues, and DevOps is empowered much more than just doing the release management part of it. On technical side of things, many tools have evolved. Earlier we used to have very few source code commit tools, right? Now you have SVN, GitHub, Git, Bitbucket, and all this is responsibility now of DevOps to figure out which is the right tool for us, whether it is costing, whether it is agility, and based on that, DevOps team has to decide and let the development team know that which is the right tool for us, how should we go about it. So I think there is a lot of transformation happening, and I believe it continues.
Thank you, Ashish. I think great set of points. What I hear from you is Well, it was not that DevOps was less important, but over time it is assuming more and more and more significance with a lot of expectations coming their way, having to scale up with a lot of things, CI/CD to operations monitoring to security and stuff. In fact, interesting point, which I'll also develop on a bit later during the discussion, is we talk about to our customers a shift left strategy, right? A shift left ideally is you move all your checks and balances earlier in the development cycle, because the earlier you find issues, the less expensive it is to fix. Its cost is directly proportional. The timeline of the issue is directly proportional to cost. Sooner the detection, sooner the less expensive it is to fix.
Yeah, and how can you, reduce your tech debt? Because once the tech debt starts piling,
Exactly.
it never comes into priority because business always takes the priority.
Correct. Absolutely. No, thanks. Good set of views, Ashish, over there. I'll turn to Prateek. What are your views?
Yeah, so I think we've seen shifting of workloads recently to the cloud, major workloads moving to cloud,
Okay.
and then the rise of continuous delivery, continuous integration, CI/CD is what we call, right? The major DevOps is going, efforts in going in that. So now cloud is again going ahead and coming up with serverless technologies, right? We ourselves use App Engine, Cloud Run, or even Cloud Functions. What it will transform DevOps into is it will allow you to do the deployment and delivery right at a single place. It will also allow you to do testing and application monitoring at a single place, because these are fully managed solutions by cloud, and therefore you will also have fully managed monitoring solutions from them. So it will become largely cost effective and much more easier to manage. That's what I feel the transformation is going to come.
You bring a very good point, Prateek, because cloud is now omnipresent and a lot of things are getting into cloud. Companies are in their transformation journey at some point in the transformation journey, right? And what also you rightly highlighted is the agility that you get with getting into a cloud. Of course, there are nuances on how do I control costs and monitor those costs as we go. Is it really in line with the expenditures that are expected? But yeah, that's something that we'll also discuss as we move forward. But thanks for bringing that. Cloud is a very important aspect, though. Yeah. Last but not the least, Jigar, we definitely want to hear your views on what you see as a transformation today.
So my views on transformation is, there has to be an acceptance to adopting a new change in the technology, because technology is evolving, day by day, and we have to adopt, in any ways, whatever we can. I give you one real-time example of myself. I started my career as a system administrator, where I was, working with networking, Windows, and setting up, servers and all those stuff, where, I had been into data centers and we were deploying all the changes of networking, switching, routing, setting up hubs. From there, I started, into Windows. I set up Windows environment into our, infrastructure. We started deployments over there itself. And then, the cloud was the next big thing in the market. So I jump into, cloud, and I understand what are servers, how do we deploy them. And we had a big enough, 30, 40 member, infrastructure team where, I was just a single person when it comes to DevOps. So I saw that, adapt of change is must when it comes to, taking up the new technologies ahead. And the culture shift is really important in all these kind of, changes. Else, we would lag behind, and, there would be a big depth when it comes to, advancing to the technologies. So I think, adapting to the change, cultural shifting, and, acceptance of the new technology is all that you needed when it comes to DevOps.
Thank you so much, Jigar. I think you're a perfect example of what Ashish just said. From a system administrator to a modern DevOps, to a DevOps leader today. So I think the transformation is also seen right now within you over time, right? If I'm not mistaken. So good to know that. Super. With that, I'll move on to my next question, and I'll come back to you, Avinash, for this one. The demands of dev and ops teams can come into conflict. Essentially, these are two different teams, have been two different teams for a long time with different priorities, at least in this development life cycle. But today, they are expected to work together and in tandem. So somewhere there could be a conflict of priorities. So basically, what are your thoughts, or have you experienced, how do you really go about creating a harmonious DevOps culture?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. So if you see the word DevOps, it contains dev and ops, and But what I've seen in my experience is that DevOps has so many different connotations, different definitions. It is a much used and abused word, in my opinion. So for some folks, it's Dev and Ops coming together, right? Which this question might say. For some, it is development team doing the operations, so Dev doing the Ops. At some other places, it's Ops using the Dev methodology to doing the operations, right? So it's like all across, all around the place, right? It's so different meanings at different places. Somewhere it just means release management, somewhere it includes site reliability engineering. So yeah, traditionally Dev and Ops have been at loggerheads because of their different KPIs, their different success criteria. Devs are rewarded for delivering the features faster. They want to code fast, want to release fast. And operations, right, which we call our DevOps or SRE teams, they are rewarded for the reliability of the system, the stability of the system. And when you bring changes, when there are code changes, that has the option or that has the possibility of breaking the system. So Ops has been resisting the changes. Right? That's why you will see change management procedures at places. But in the modern era, right, when, as I said, right, computer scientists are now coming to the Ops team also, they have to work together. So some of the things, and that's what I have experienced, that's what I have practiced, is how they can come together. One is unified software development lifecycle. So SDLC has been a word which is used typically for programming or the development teams. But I think now this needs to be a together thing. They need to work together. So unified, Scrum teams, unified backlog, where they have their backlog items in the same place. Unified practices like code releases. Until now, code reviews, etc., were done primarily for devs. But now this needs to be there in the operations folks also. So I think that unifying those practices is important. Second is, say for example, production release checklist. When something is going to production, should they not have the similar checklist? Do they have the run books in place? Do they have standard operating procedures in place? Do they have some sort of auto launch of incidents or CSOs, critical system outages in place? Do they have perf testing in place? So whenever there's a change going in either the infrastructure or in the development, they should have similar code practices, right? So those are some of the things that are very important to bring Dev and Ops together, and continuing with like a main DevOps culture. DevOps is more of a culture than just a word and a team or signifying one particular aspect of it. So that's what I feel on the DevOps side.
100% true. I think as much as technology drives all of us, culture is an equally important aspect. Would you agree? As a show of hands, how many do you think culture plays a big role? Absolutely, absolutely. So I think it's more technology and people have to go together, right? I think what I read is standardization, unification of practices, if there only could be some set of standards. And I know, Hari, you and I were talking offline, and the point came up as like, everybody has done their job, but when it goes live, it just goes bust in half an hour. So who takes responsibility? Because everybody thought they had done the best thing. So which is where the coordination, the collaboration becomes very, very important. And earlier I touched upon shift left. One of the things in shift left is about how do you do code level collaboration. So really can your developers collaborate with each other, understand, hey, for me, my code is the best, right? And probably I don't even have I'm not to blame because I may not have the big picture of what somebody else is developing in the same product. So it's very important that the collaboration happens where somebody comes and tells me, hey, by the way, you have these 2-3 problems in the code which is not working with mine. Can you take a look at it and fix it? And then that becomes a more collaborative approach, which also helps in improving quality right in the beginning. And then when you go to production, there are less surprises to deal with. So thanks again, Avinash. I'll go to Hari now for the next question. Hari, with the project timelines becoming shorter, and this is no surprise to any of us here, looks like, right? So the GTM functions today are like the most aggressive functions. Every company would like to have their products way faster than they did in the market because there's always competition trying to pry for the same customer base. So with this timelines becoming shorter, what can be done to maintain quality and also deliver at speed simultaneously? Is there a formula that you have come across, is what we want to know.
See, it is an El Dorado everybody is scouting for. Okay, so
Right.
quality and speed is very difficult combination.
Of course, as you are asking, it's an oxymoron, right? Speed and quality. yeah.
But I want to put a thought perspective to everyone. See, speed is defined by the business sponsor.
Sorry, come again.
Speed is defined by the business sponsor.
Business
How?
sponsor, yeah.
Okay, that's most important thing.
That's right.
And quality is defined by the customer. That is the end user. This is a two important thing which we need to keep in mind. Okay. So when you deliver a quality, development team always thinks, look, my UAT is done, issues are clean, I'm done. But when it goes to production, you start hitting the bottlenecks. Okay. Now they start saying that, look, there is a testing team which they've done testing. I don't take an accountability. This is always a vicious circle which keeps going to address. Okay. So it's two things which every enterprise needs to do to improve the quality is keep doing standardization, keep going on standardization. The practice makes man perfect, So if you keep doing the same thing, you are less likely to do errors, less likely to do mistakes. So as much as you standardize on the technologies or kind of frameworks which you build, or the kind of development methodologies which you adopt, the better it will be. So that is one. And automate it as much as possible. See, because it's machine repeats the mistakes if it is, okay.
right.
And once it's corrected, it will remain there corrected. So it's two things important. One, standardization. Second, automation. That's the key. And you're not going to get result overnight. It's something continuous process and eventually evolve and reach to that speed which your business wanted it.
Absolutely, Hari. Standardization, automation, two key terms. I think what also that means is that you're now making your processes less human error prone, right? So you're not really dependent on people. Right? They're the ones who will build the automation, but then the machine takes care of it. I think with today's intelligent systems, what we also see is the systems remember the history better than humans do.
Absolutely.
Right? So that way it makes a lot of help in understanding what has been known case versus a new issue and be able to handle that. Very interesting point about automation, and that actually I'll segue into my next question to Ashish. What do you think is, and we are hearing this, AI and automation are very common terms put to use as well with many enterprises. What's the role of AI and automation specific to DevOps? What's your view on that?
Yes, the one-line answer to that is that in last 15-20 minutes, whatever we have discussed is not possible manually.
Right.
So AI, automation, ML definitely needs to be part of it. I think release management itself requires a lot of automation in terms of building the pipeline. I'm not going to cover that. But one aspect which has evolved lately is that a lot of data is getting logged in terms of logs, matrices, and that is where the AI or ML can play a big role. So all this data which is getting logged by applications has to be monitored by someone, and basis that you need to provide alerts or alarm the systems what is going wrong. Now I will give you an example from our experience. For example, we are a new banking application and customers onboard themselves into our application. Definitely in night times it is not possible for customers to onboard themselves. Now the system starts giving an alarm that onboarding is not happening in night time. That's a false alarm. And that is one very good example of how automation or AI can play a big role. That what we have done is that it is a algorithm which is put in, which says that during this time, if the onboarding is not happening, then this is like what is expected out of it, right? So these kinds of automation or AI ability, which tells that what are the right alarms or right alerts, is one area going through the logs, a lot of data which is getting logged by different applications, and then sending the right alarms is something which is like one of the areas where AI and automation can help. The other, I think you picked up, how do we shift the focus to left-hand side of things.
That's right.
How do we figure out vulnerabilities in the code much ahead in the pipeline? So that is another area where automation plays a big role. Whenever you are committing the code, then and there, if there are areas like, where the applications are vulnerable or not, and you can do some kind of VAPT then and there, that is another area where automation plays a critical role, so that the applications are not vulnerable and we're not finding that at the last moment. So yeah, these are two areas which I feel definitely automation can help, and there are many others, but I'm just trying to make sure that I am within the time limits.
No, absolutely. I think what I wanted to say is a very good set of points, because instantly at Neuralink, we take these as very key aspects today: automation and AI ops and security, right? DevSecOps. We realize and we recognize that our customers, while delivering quality at speed, also requires that security cannot be compromised. Things have to be automated. And now, how do I learn? How do I better this process? That can happen only through AI ops. So what we have done is, through the platform, today we are trying to give customers a visibility into what can possibly go wrong, where are the loose connects, what are the weak links, and in time, how do you fix that so that you can move on from there and you get to better quality software delivered in a shorter time. So that is something that we also have taken up. So I was just trying to resonate with your thoughts on why it is important today for this thing. Yeah. Thanks, Ashish. But also now I'll segue. I think you'll still have to hold the mic. I'm going to come to you for the next question. So that's a back-to-back one for you.
Thanks.
Cloud is a big deal, right? We already heard that cloud is happening, and everybody in some form is moving to cloud. When moving to DevOps to cloud, what are some of the considerations that teams should have? I'm sure there are a lot of leaders, aspiring leaders, and DevOps practitioners here who would like to know what are things to keep in mind when moving DevOps to cloud.
Sure. Yeah, I think cloud is a very fancy term used everywhere nowadays, and it is with all good reasons. Because it comes with many abilities for you to scale up quickly. But I think you should also, there are a few things which I would like to highlight. One, that you understand your current infra first. What is your current infra? Because when you are on premise, right, generally you tend to procure more. Because, procurement is not an easy process.
Absolutely.
Right? So you should not do a like-to-like, lift and shift process. Like if you have many processes here, you should not have the same number of nodes on cloud, right? So you need to be very mindful of, what your current infra is. How are you going to migrate this to cloud? And the good part is in cloud is that you can scale up quickly. So you should definitely look into that aspect. That is one. The second is that what is your requirement? Because there are multiple types of cloud, whether it is private cloud, public cloud, hybrid cloud. I'm not going to the details of those things, but that is something which you should understand before you move to the cloud environment. Then what is your backup and restoration policy? What is your DR policy, right? And how often do you want to move to DR? Because many companies are developing applications which needs to do a DR drill, every 6 months, 1 year down the line. For example, we being banking application, we have to do this drill once in a year, and that is a compliance thing, regulatory thing. Right. So you need to make sure that what is your backup DR strategy, and that you are getting the same thing on the respective cloud. And there are various cloud providers, whether it is AWS, whether it is Azure. So you need to pick up that specifically. And then I think one thing which may not apply to everyone, but most of them is legal aspects of it, yep. Right? So can you keep data within the India? Can you keep data outside India? In fact, just before this call, I was having a discussion with one of our GitHub's partners. So we're just talking about that only, what is our legal compliance thing? Yeah. Because for us, we can't keep data outside India. Can you keep your code outside India or not? The source code can be outside India, data can be outside India. Nowadays, regulations are quite strict, and I believe it is going to be more stricter going forward as well. Absolutely. Whether it is personal data, PII data, non-PII data. So you should keep data aspect also into mind when you are moving towards cloud, because nowadays Google is also creating a lot of transparency in terms of what data is being captured with which application. Yeah, so I think those are some considerations which
Absolutely.
we have
I think there are some very good insights. Thank you so much. Thank you. I think teams will also benefit who are moving to cloud. They understand that now. So I'll move on to Prateek for my next question. Prateek, now that we have spoken about cloud adoption, things to consider, what's your view about data migration and security, especially with moving to cloud?
So enterprise data migration can be tough, right? Because it's old data. There are a lot of costs involved, there are a lot of dependencies involved, and largely the risks are involved. Therefore, it's important to prepare for migration. We usually do that in 4 phases. First, assess the data migration requirements, then plan for it, what all tasks or things we need to do in order to ensure the successful migration, then actually do migrate and then optimize. That's the 4-step checklist that we usually follow. Then comes what is the type of data, right? Usually structured data, let's say SQL server sitting in on-prem, transferring that to cloud is usually easier. But if you have to transfer VMs or let's say S3 buckets, which are large in nature, it also has to be planned out properly, because if the task fails in between, you will have inconsistency. So that's why it's important to assess the type of data that we are managing, and then the size of data is important, because if you're migrating to cloud, you will be limited with the network throughput, right? You will have hardly 10 or 20 Mbps consistent line. So that's also important part. Then comes the right tools to consider migration. If the data size is small and if it is structured in nature, then there are a lot of inbuilt tools provided by cloud, like BigQuery transfer service or database migration service, which are very handy and very, very robust in nature. So otherwise, you will have to develop a solution and ensure that it's proper before we go ahead. And lastly, very important is the people, right? Who is the right for the job? We also need to ensure that a lot of new tools are tempting to go for, but we also need to ensure the experience and the expertise in the team for the successful data migration. I think these are few things we should consider in the successful data migration.
Thank you, Prateek. Good insights. I think tools, what tools to choose, who are the people who will use those tools to make the migration happen, have a plan, and have a backup plan as well if things don't go. So, yeah, thanks, Prateek. I'll turn to Jigar now for my next question. So we all know that there are many industries and companies who are on the digital transformation journey. Some of them could be running legacy infrastructure as well. And not all of these can really get into cloud completely for many business reasons that they would have. In such a scenario, I would like to understand from you, and especially for cloud businesses, when I talk about observability, it is not much of a problem in terms of tools, because today you have a lot of cloud-based tools to help implement observability and practice observability. But when it comes to a hybrid infrastructure, where you have assets in the cloud, assets on-premise, how do we really bring these hybrid setups or mixed setups under the ambit of observability, and to make sure that we are connected, we know what's happening across the board? So how do we do that?
So see, this is one of the issues that, when you have certain things on-prem where you want to deploy it on the cloud, but you cannot due to certain reasons, these issues, will definitely come when you have very small set of applications which is already running inside your infrastructure, and you cannot move it to cloud directly. Correct. There are certain complications, there are costs involved, there are certain things where, some developer has already developed, but you do not have the source code as well now. So how do you move this, into observability, monitoring, and maintaining the security around this? The solutions to such problems is all the unified tools that are available in the cloud. Maybe I don't want to take the names of these tools, but yeah, there are many tools in the market where you can just install a small piece of code inside your application, inside your hardware devices, or inside your software as a product, whatever you're using. They'll start generating this matrices similarly, and they will throw it directly to the cloud. So there are many unified tools in the market where you will get visibility across your what your application is doing or what your hardware is doing, and they will start throwing all those necessary things into the cloud, where you have a unified dashboard where you will see the single view from from network perspective, from monitoring perspective, from security perspective, who is consuming this applications, who is touching base, what are the network routes that are available, what are the I mean, whoever is touching database applications, you can directly get the observability, and probably in 6 months of time, you can start migrating them to the cloud as well. So whatever the unified tools are available, these gives, the visibility to add, whatever is there on-prem or, any of the data centers which is residing, and they will directly, add you up to your, to whatever monitoring tools that you are using. So these tools are, solving most of the problems of on-prem, and we can start leveraging this, and these are very easy to configure as well. Within an hour itself, you can start monitoring things which are already there on-prem, and, they can start throwing the matrices to your servers, and then you can, start monitoring them, and this is the easy job for an IT, person to do.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. So yeah, I think the tools can do it. Basically, on-prem, off-prem, or cloud tools can do the job. That leads me into my next question for you, Hari. See, one of the risks of, or the perils of using many tools is tool sprawl. The tools itself become a problem over time. Because there's so many tools, somewhere it starts to defeat the purpose what you set out for. Maybe you don't get a single view, too many things to look at, and make sense of it in context. These are things that could come. So, in your opinion, how have you dealt, or what are your thoughts on how do you really go about consolidating this? What are some of the challenges? How do you really consolidate this? Is there some advice on when there's a tool sprawl?
Okay. So let me start giving experience from my professional life. So we went from on-prem to multi-cloud. It's in a transformation stage, okay. So we went a couple of applications live, and then we set up our landing zone and everything. One of the key challenge we had was security, okay. So AWS have their own native security tools. GCP have their own native security tools. Do you want to run 3 different security tools and start managing security? So finally we decided we will use same security tool which we've been using in on-prem, which is what we have taken to cloud as well. What had actually happened is, we manage security only once, okay. So the standardization is the key to control your tool sprawl. We have to have a policy at somewhere in the line. Look, for every sizing, for every action or every particular task, there's a kind of a defined tool, and we continue to grow in that. So the approach which traditionally everyone takes is horses for the courses. You identify the best tool for that particular software application development, and then you implement it. What happens is eventually over a period of time in the production, you end up having a similar tools. You'll find Memcache running in one project, Elasticache running in another project, but then you both are doing the same work. So you have to consolidate the technology at somewhere, and this cannot be done as a rationalization. Okay, then what happens is the cost of migrations becomes bigger. So it needs to be addressed from the start itself. Once you've identified certain technologies and you embark on a journey to build, whenever you take any new project, you'll have to continue using the same. And if you have taken anything new, you have to have a plan to decommission the earlier one as well. What people don't do is you embark on a new journey with a new application, but you don't decommission. So eventually you end up having too many. You will find many versions of, NoSQL is running, Postgre is running, MySQL is running within the enterprises, and then you look at the managing. You're not going to get a skill set to manage. Same person cannot manage all these things. Too much overhead cost, infrastructure cost, understanding cost, migration cost. It's all. So it's better to prevent that at the day one. I didn't have a clear strategy in terms of what you want to do, how you wanted to look at it. So have a 3-year plan or 5-year plan. This is the tools which you want to adopt, be it DevOps, be it development, be it post-production, and stick to the tools and then improve. When you take, even if there is a time to change, have a clear plan to decommission the existing one.
Absolutely. I think some very good pertinent points there to things. So having a plan, and I think what also important is getting to the teams to see the big picture, right? So otherwise they tend to see only their part of the equation and then may not understand what's happening. So it's important to that. With that, I'll turn to Anand for a quick thought on what do you think from your experience, what has been your experience with tool sprawl, and quickly if you can share a line or two about what.
I think this standardization topic is very well covered by Hari. In the interest of time, I would just like to add one more thing, like automation. So as much as automation you add into the standardization, then automatically this tool, the tool sprawl can be controlled. That is my experience and my thought over it. But tool sprawl is across the industry now. If you see, the lot of open source softwares are coming up, and big companies, if you, as an example, I'm just giving, Microsoft is investing in OpenAI, for example. So one point in time Microsoft was considered to be a very good brand, and they were not very much pro open source softwares. So the thought process of any DevOps engineer manager should be like, how can I reduce, as Hari has rightly said, in the start itself, like how with the minimum number of tools, how can I manage it? So, and what is the level of automation I want to achieve by using the different tools? So this is what I can add to what Hari has just said.
Perfect, thanks. I think we probably are mostly getting to be on time, maybe another few minutes. I just want to spend a couple of minutes from a couple of you on security especially, right? We talk about DevSecOps. Security is a very important aspect. And very specifically, I just want a line or two of your thoughts, especially from the banking and the insurance industry, which is mostly, I think it's a big concern for these two industries. So if I could ask, Avinash, in a line or two, how would you really relate to DevSecOps, and what's the relevance? You can take it. No, it's fine.
Yeah, so security is definitely important, and as you know that I'm from Razorpay, which is fintech, where security is of the prime importance. So security, apart from the zero-day vulnerabilities or the phishing attacks like you would have seen in Uber, which was very popular in recent past, you need to control security at different levels, like access control is important thing. In fact, we are developing our own system where we want to control security at the base image level. We are Kubernetes shop, so in Kubernetes you can develop those container images. So we are developing a system where we use the standardized images which are security controlled and then build on top of it. So yeah, security, you need to think from day one. You cannot leave it for later. And security is like one of the most important factors in your practice.
Thanks, Avinash. I think a right point made there. Security is not an afterthought. It should be a salient feature of anything that we do today, right? So thanks. I think we'll just have, we've come to almost the end of this panel discussion. What I want to do is conclude this with one thought, one advice to the audience here who are DevOps teams and practitioners. What would be one advice that you would have for the people here in the audience? Just one line.
Just one line. People side, follow the right prioritization, and one line I would say is that the guidance in face of ambiguities, when you face a question, what should I do this and should I do that, follow this particular, based on my experience, what is best for the customer, the second is what is best for the company, and then third, what is good for the team. So customer, company, and the team, in that order is what we should look at when in the face of ambiguities.
Sounds perfect. Hari, over to you.
I said this earlier. Your customer decides quality.
Yep.
That's you have to keep it in mind always. Development team does not define quality. Testing does not define quality. Or release does not define quality. Your customer decides quality. It has to run in production. So have to have a planning right from the start that how it's going to run production. I probably take a couple of minutes, to give one experience on this. In about 2006, 2007. We did launch a broker plaza in Bombay Stock Exchange. It's called as WebEx. Okay, it was in the fag end of December we launched it. It was running fine all over India. We had internet is not so best like today. But in Middle East, it was not running. It was having an issue in the Middle East. Wherever, we've installed the terminal, it's not working. We send engineers from here. They looked at it. Our site is accessing. We're able to. There's no issues. But still, it's not working. And like 15 days, 20 days, my customers started complaining it. Finally, we realized that, Bombay Stock Exchange, the index is Sensex. And it has a word called sex. And which completely dropped off in the ISPs in Middle East. So this is what I'm talking about. The day one you start identifying your target environment, you have to start understanding where you are going to run, how you are going to run. That is very important from the development itself. If you don't do, then it's going to fail. And that's why I keep repeating that, customer decides quality. You have to understand how customers are going to run it so that you start building from that perspective.
Perfect, Hari. I think that would have been the least expected inhibitor, I would say. But thanks. Yeah, Anand, one line, please. I know we are almost out of time, but I will just have time for last.
So I would like to give a food for thought for the audience and the panel over here. So by bringing in platform engineering, are we not trying to do shift right as contrast to shift left? Question mark. Think about
Thanks. That's nice. Ashish?
Yeah, customer is also already covered. So my advice to DevOps team specifically would be that a lot of new tools are coming, things are evolving. So keep up to the space and keep learning new things.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ashish. Prateek, to you.
Yeah, I think my advice is also similar. A lot of new tools are coming, but advice is that look at your skill set of the team, right? End of the day, you have to ensure the successful implementation. A lot of tools may seem tempting, but look at the skill set and the expertise experience in the team in order for successful implementation of the DevOps.
Thank you. Jigar.
So my advice would be, let's start thinking about secure SDLC models. There is a lot of things which is, around security bus, but, I feel that security is given least, privilege when it comes to DevOps. So there has to be an, secure SDLC model which everyone should start adopting and implementing.
Thank you so much, Jigar, for that concluding thought. On behalf of all of you, I would like to thank the panelists here today for giving us your time, sharing with us your rich experience, which I'm sure the audience has found very insightful and useful. And again, thank you all for giving us your time today. I hope you have gotten some great insights from these gentlemen here that you can go back and use to better your DevOps practices. With that, I wish you all a great day here, good day, rest of the day.